those of you who went, and the treaty, those of you who went to the Pacific Aviation Museum, did you get to go to the Missouri also? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Good, good. Because they're like bookends to the war. Where else? You can stand there where the war ended and look over here where it began. At the memorial over the Arizona and the Pacific Aviation Museum. So wonderfully done. You can't really see that she's still there, but look how shallow. It really shows you how shallow this harbor is and where your motor launch brings you. There are 21 openings in the memorial. The architect was actually held in that camp because he was from Austria and he became the architect. He designed it with the 21 openings in saluting, a 21 gun salute. In the middle there's a depression. That is the blow we took that day and how we rose up. When you stand here and you look over the side, what do you see? Oil still comes up from 70-some years ago. People say it's the tears of the men who are there below you. Larry and I have been invited to the burial, or the taking of the urn under the Arizona, and also the Utah. They don't actually take the urn, they just do the ashes. But when you go to the memorial, you'll see the wall here at the back. You go in, you stand here on the other side, and oil still comes up. And when the sun hits it, it just kind of makes these rainbow colors. Then at the back here are the 1,177 names. Then when you go, you'll see a bench here and a bench there, and you might miss it. But on the bench you will also see names. Those are the survivors who have chosen to have their urn taken. And so you will watch a diver, and she died. It was a female the day that we saw her. And we watched her take that so he could be with his shipmates. And here's one of them. And there's a matching one on the other side. Also, don't we all look for our name? You'll see 7 sets of similar names because there were 7 sets of brothers. 1 set of 3 brothers and a father and a son. To end with, Richard continued to have the nightmares of that airplane coming towards him, feeling the torpedoes going into his ship, remembering how it was to have to abandon ship, and the nightmares, the memories. Today we call it PTSD. We didn't have a word for it then. We're literally killing him. And so this is 20-some years, the wars have been over, and Richard wakes up in an emergency room and his surgeon says, okay, Sarge, you want to tell me what's eating at you? Something's eating at you. You need to tell me what is eating at you. And so Richard said, oh, I had to tell. I wanted to live. And I bawled like a baby, but I hadn't even told my family, I hadn't told my wife. I'm sure they guessed, but I didn't tell them. And then I decided I wanted to tell everybody. So if you would have gone to the Arizona Memorial and you would have gone on a Friday, you would have seen this tall Marine with a mustache and a book, and he would have said, this is my story, but we don't have to hate anymore. Because at this 1991 50th anniversary, here comes Lieutenant Zenji Abe. Now, do you think he was welcome at the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association meeting? Richard was happy, put out his hand. That he said to the meeting, quite like this, wouldn't it be fun to have those guys that bombed us come and attend one of our meetings? Some guy stood up and he said, if any of those so-called walk in, I'm walking out. 10 pilots came. You know, this how crazy war makes us. The guy certainly didn't want the Japanese pilots to come and join their group. They had to find, because every 5 years the reunion is held in Hawaii. They could not find a hotel large enough for their reunion that wasn't Japanese owned. And probably rented a Japanese car and used a Japanese camera. But Richard wanted to do his own personal healing. So Mr. Abe came and they saw kinship in each other, and this is where I want to end, with this feeling of hope, just like those in Czechoslovakia. I had hope. We have to have hope. They became friends. Mr. Abe said, Richard, son, if I give you some money, would you buy 2 red roses, take it out to the Arizona, and I'm going to show you the ceremony, the friendship that they did between each other. Mr. Abe apologized on Good Morning America. I said, Mr. Abe, I already asked you, you don't hate us. Why do you owe us an apology? You were a young man. Richard loved his country. You loved your country. We fought each other. But he said, when I flew over Pearl Harbor, nobody fired back at me. My country told me that you would get a warning. It wouldn't be very long, maybe a few minutes. Nobody fired at me. I am a warrior. I do not fight that way. And those 1,177 men should have fired at me. That's why I apologize. So I wrote a book about these 2 men, and I said, write it to the children of America. Write it to my granddaughter. And so that night that we got to sleep in his bed, here he is in his home sending this message of friendship to the children.
Children can learn from the mistakes of the past and maybe teach their country how to spread peace all over the world. There are many countries in a small mother Earth. We need to recognize each does have its own history, culture, and customs. It is most important we work together to understand each other. Your friends, Zenji Abe.
Our friend Richard Fisk, the bugler from the USS West Virginia, has his own special way of remembering those who died on December the 7th. Once a month, he goes to the USS Arizona Memorial and has a very simple but eloquent way of remembering. Let me ask him to tell you about it.
To help me with this ceremony today, we fought a vicious war We both suffered a lot. And yet, we can put all of that aside and become very sincere friends. And I think this is the way it's supposed to be.
I wanted so much to share this story with all of you, and thank you for letting me do that as a Pearl Harbor child. Aloha. Mahalo. It's been an honor to present for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for our guests?
I do. Was your dog okay when you got back?
Yes,
Oh,
it
good.
was. Well, we've been gone a week, so we came home and we're turning down the road, and I'm looking for her, and I'm looking for her. Her name is Hula Girl because my mother, as I told you, was a hula teacher, and she always joined the class, and she could really wiggle. And I called for her, and I couldn't find her, and I got up in the mango tree, and I looked, and I looked. It took me till almost dark to find her, and she had hidden under the house. And my dad got the flashlight, and by doing the flashlight that glint, because she still wouldn't come to us, but we did find her. But thank you for asking. And I hope to be at one of your air shows. I keep trying to be, because I was a flight attendant, growing up loving airplanes, and so I had to be a flight attendant, and I still belong to a retired flight attendant group. And Larry and I helped with the first air shows, the big air shows down at the Wheeler downtown airport. They needed the flight attendants to be hosts and hostesses and try to help get sponsors, because that fuel does cost a lot, doesn't it? Not to mention putting them up at the hotels and driving them around. So we helped with that. We helped get all of the concessions. I don't know if you have concessions at yours, or as you're going you might want to do that. And then that was another way that we raised money. Someone bid on that from Cincinnati, and so the concessions are done from there. But I think you need to stay homegrown for that. And I would love to do one of the honor flights. Keep hoping they need somebody to be a hostess on that. I hope that you'll invite me back, and we'll talk more about some of those other airplanes in other part of World War II. Thank you so much. And then we can just visit during lunch, and you get 3 desserts, wasn't it? I thought. Oh, and you know what some kid said to me the other day? Came up after the end of that and said, "Was that you at the end thanking us about Pearl Harbor and all?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Oh, that was when you were young."